Square, let's go. I heard that we here in the Howard Square, let's go. I heard that we here in the Times Square, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Hello and welcome to the MKH Podcast. I am your host, Maximilian Hill, and today we have a very special guest. Martin Stark is the founder of the World Gay Boxing Championships, and he is the author of Courage, Your Right Hook. He's also a professional public speaker, and he is a very popular figure on LinkedIn. Martin, thank you for coming on the podcast. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for inviting me, Maximilian. As always, before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where I currently am, the Gamaraga people, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I'm in Sydney on a hot, sunny afternoon.
Well, yeah, it's, what is it, lunchtime over by you right now?
Yeah, lunchtime right now, and we're in a peak of humidity and bright skies and beautiful sun. So enjoying summer.
Very good. So you and I connected through our mutual friend, Junaid Iqbal. And
yeah, we connected through Junaid Iqbal on his LinkedIn audio rooms that Kevin Logan would always come and speak on. So we've been connected for a couple of years now, built that rapport through LinkedIn and just established know, like, and trust. And that's led to a friendship.
Yes, I know Junaid and Kevin, they do great content. They are hilarious. And it's such a powerful way to meet people. Definitely the comment section on LinkedIn is a great way to share, your kind of ideas and connect with like-minded people, but also connect with people maybe who think a little bit differently from you. But yeah, great to finally have you on the podcast. I know we've been talking about it for a little while, but I've got your book here, Courage, Your Right Hook. Yes. And I've been reading it. It's really good. I like it. Tell me a little bit about the journey writing this book, and tell me about the pillars of courage.
I've always wanted to write a book. So for the last 5.5 years, I've been leading change in boxing, disrupting homophobia through building relationships, setting up the World Gay Boxing Championships, delivering 2 events for the LGBTQ plus community and their lives, one in Sydney 2 years ago, last year in Chicago, advocating for change. So that journey has been one of absolute courage and transformative change for me personally. Previously to that, I've battled health issues. I've been in 2 comas. I've had a tracheotomy. I've got a rare autoimmune condition that has almost killed me 2 or 3 times, including just before Christmas last year. I've been in hospital over 70 times. So the book is part memoir, part business book and self-help guide. So I talk about my experiences of being in comas, being an out gay man, setting up the World Gay Boxing Championships, and also 6 pillars of courage, which are emotional courage, physical courage, moral courage, empathetic courage, steadfast courage, and cerebral courage.
Yeah, I think that's terrific. And what, I guess, practical advice would you have for anyone who's listening to this? Maybe it's someone who's stuck in a cubicle who hates their job, right? But they don't know how to make the move to something maybe that's more, fulfilling, maybe more financially rewarding, right? What is a short tip that you could share with them, how they could make courage a habit?
First thing is understand what courage is. And it's taking ownership of fear, venturing forward with confidence and resilience. I'll give you an example. So just before Christmas, I was in hospital and my blood pressure dropped to dangerously low levels. And the nurses arranged for the ICU rapid response team to come down twice. And I needed to have painful fluids through my hand for an hour to raise my blood pressure. It was painful, but I worked through the fear of the pain because it was worth not risking my life. It was worth experiencing the pain and moving forward. When you can own the fear, when you can own the pain, it puts you in a better position to take better choices, make better decisions, and move forward with confidence. And that leads to the next step. When you have your courage and your purpose, is just start taking action, start doing something, start reaching out, and that develops confidence and excellence. And that's what I call about courage at your own pace. And once you do that, you can start making courage a habit. You can start learning different aspects of your own courage, or different ways of being courageous. When you're stuck in that job, something that you don't enjoy, when you apply a lens of courage and you start taking steps, you develop a bit of a plan, it makes that process something that you fear to something you enjoy. You're applying for a job, you're going for interviews, you don't like your current job. It's not going to be taking you long to find something purposeful because of your actions, because of your conviction. And imagine what it's going to be like not being in that toxic environment and being in an environment where you really enjoy, that you have something to look forward to.
Yeah, I think one of the things I love about boxing is it's the ultimate in accountability. Meaning, I grew up, I played a lot of team sports. I played football, I played baseball. And when you win, everything's gravy, right? But when you lose, there's a lot of blame that could be spread. And there's usually a couple culprits. But in boxing, right, if you lose, there's really only one person who's responsible, right? And it's you, right? Or maybe you gave your all, you literally gave your all and did everything you could, and you got beat by someone who is stronger. And there's no shame in that, right? I mean, I look at people like Tyson Fury and Canelo Alvarez, and you know they're just like world beaters. But that's one of the things I love about boxing. So tell me, how did you get involved in boxing?
So I got involved in boxing, and I'm going to talk about Tyson Fury in a few minutes. I got involved in boxing because at the end of 2017, I almost died from Addison's disease.
Yeah.
So Addison's disease is my body doesn't produce cortisol. And
Okay.
cortisol is your body's stress-producing hormone. So in the event of an infection, your cortisol levels increase. Mine don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself in the intensive care section of emergency. And that experience brought back memories of being in comas. So to help combat the PTSD, I underwent self-defense training and boxing training and fell in love with the sport. It helped me grapple with my demons, improve my confidence, and just find different ways of being courageous and exploring life, and literally turn into my purpose. Now, I want to talk about Tyson Fury because he is a sore loser. He's a great winner.
He is a sore loser.
He's a sore loser. And Usyk, you know, he's lost twice to Usyk. And at their last event, Usyk paid homage to Tyson Fury. What did Tyson Fury do? The exact opposite. Blamed it on the referees, blamed it on others, saying that he should have won twice. See, a champion learns from experience. They learn from losing. And they respect the other opponent, the other competitors, because they wouldn't be there if they had nobody else to race against, to fight against, to swim against, to compete against. And that's what I love about boxing, is they respect the camaraderie. So Tyson, great fighter, terrible winner, terrible loser. Not the best example.
I think part of his problem is he was undefeated for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I mean, the trilogy that he had with Deontay Wilder was something. I mean, that was some of the best boxing I've ever, as a fan, right? And he could have lost two of those if, you know, one thing goes another way. But I think he got so used to winning. And when Usyk came in, and Usyk did beat him both times, I don't think he just knew how to handle it. But you're right. He was a very sore loser. But I'm a huge fan, a huge boxing fan. I grew up watching Manny Pacquiao. Great sport. So as a gay man, right, boxing is very macho arena, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, I'm sure that you've had to be courageous in that world, right? And how have you found the community in boxing? Have they received you well? Have you found
my own experiences have been received well.
Oh, that's good.
And I've built relationships, but there's a lot of stuff that I don't share, or I keep a lot of information confidential.
Yeah.
I've come to boxing to tackle the problem of homophobia.
Okay.
And if you look at other sports who've been doing things for years in the LGBTQ plus community, baseball, football, cricket, rugby, boxing hadn't done anything. So I've come to talk about a problem. Now, I've had the backing of some of the world boxing bodies. At the same time, not all of them like what I've been doing. You know, there's one boxing organization who just don't like what I do.
I can imagine.
There are conversations I've been having within the last 12 months because of homophobia. I've had one boxing organization, not one of the bodies, go from offering to promise a public statement of support to withdrawing it and not giving a reason why. I've had a CEO of a boxing organization kind of saying they won't sanction the World Gay Boxing Championships in a certain part of the world without giving the reason why, even though other organizations and events are being sanctioned. So you see the problem here. There are barriers that shouldn't exist. And when you're asked to do something about a barrier, you can report it, you can support it, or you can make it harder, or you can add another barrier. So that's what I grapple with homophobia. And I've spoken out against Sean Strickland, against Dana White. I'll tell you now, Sean Strickland and Dana White are in Sydney right now for UFC this weekend. And I've condemned both of them in the media for the homophobia, not dealing with homophobia. Years ago, UFC had their own Pride range. UFC at one point was sponsoring New York Pride. So you've seen the shift we've had in the last 2 to 3 years, where there's been a lot of pushback against the community. And I think that's my message of courage right now. Although society may have changed, continue being courageous, continue speaking out, continue supporting each other.
Yeah, I think we've made strides. Maybe definitely not enough, but I think there's definitely been strides made over the last, I don't know, several years, I would say. Some of that is maybe in peril now with the elections going on in America. We're not going to get into that, but tell me about, just in general, some people would not be as courageous as you to stand up for what you believe in, right? And what's the difference between, I guess, people who aren't courageous and people who are?
Courage is a journey. So that's why I talk about courage at your own pace, your own steps. That there are times you've always been courageous. It could be learning to drive, the difference between your first lesson and your 5th lesson, learning to ride the bike. There's a point where you no longer need stabilizers or training wheels. When we learn to walk, when we fail an exam, when we improve next time, there are times when you've always been courageous. It's how you apply courage. It's how you share what you believe in. You could be in a work meeting and they're asking for ideas, and you can have the best idea, but if you don't share that with others, and another person came up with an idea and they go with that idea, you had the opportunity, you chose not to speak. The environment might not have been conducive to speaking, but by not sharing what you stand for, your beliefs, your perspectives, that's your choice. Now, when you start doing that, you don't have to be doing all the things I do in the media, taking public stances against homophobia, but within your conversations, within your business, I stand behind my product because it helps solve problems. I can help you grow your career. I can help you solve this pain point. That's moral courage because you're standing behind what you do. Now, the disadvantage of not doing that is you leave that conversation to somebody else. You leave the opportunities for others, and people might not think you as being courageous. I need a brave person because of this great job, and it requires these skills. It requires a level of confidence. Yes. If you're not as confident as another person, you may be capable, they might go for the other person because they are more confident, even if they're not as capable in certain areas
I
as what you
agree.
are.
I agree with it. And I do some work with college students, and it is true because sometimes you could be really competent, really good for the job, but it is important how you sell yourself
Yeah,
because you need to persuade the person who's going to put their reputation on the line for you, right?
yeah,
And give you X amount of dollars, right? You need to persuade them that, okay, this person is going to bring value to the table.
yeah,
I can tell you, as so, I had a near-death experience in Dubai last year. I was there for a conference and I took the metro. And I think the metro in Dubai is overcrowded when it's operating at 100%.
yeah,
3 days before I got there, there was like historic flooding, and they had taken care of the floods by the time I got to Dubai. But they had to shut down like 25% of their metro stops, right?
yeah,
So what was already a crowded metro was even more crowded when I got there. And I got on the metro because I wanted to save a buck, and almost died 3 stops later because it was just so crowded. I
yeah,
mean, uh, I'm from New York, right? So I'm used to crowded train cars, but not like this, right? And that's why I'll never, ever, 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 ever complain about the New York City Metro public transportation system after this experience. But because people were on the train, they were screaming, they were crying, people were just getting on the train and they weren't letting anybody get off.
yeah,
And part of the problem was if you don't get on that train, you're not getting paid, right? And you have a couple. I've had several experiences like that in my life, and it really just reinforces uh, the reality that life is short, right? And opportunity knocks very rarely. And if you're not, um, I guess, in a position to seize it, right, you can lose it. And I guess that, I guess my question for you is, how have your near-death experiences um, changed your view of, I guess, opportunity? Um, and just have you found it to be a motivating factor? Like, okay, like, you know,
it's
does it make sense?
I mean, my biggest experience was in 2006, going from never really facing death to within a week or so of being in hospital, being in intensive care, going for a CT scan, scared of actually having the scan, not of being scared of having the scan, but being away from ICU because my lungs had collapsed. I had
Mm,
severe acute pancreatitis, being asked to go on a ventilator, not knowing if I'm going to wake up. The experience of being immobilized as a tracheotomy is performed, my absolute worst fear. Really struggling to breathe, knowing I'm going to be going on back on a ventilator. Am I going to wake up again? Those experiences just change you. A few years ago, I had suspected meningitis and I was in hospital. And I remember needing a lumbar puncture. And the doctor, who was just so calm, so confident, she gave local anesthetic and she's putting a needle into my spinal cord. And
mm,
I'm just there calm and collected because that experience was, well, whatever happens, I'm here. Whatever happens, I'll be okay because I'm going to have the best care. Thankfully, it wasn't meningitis. But that ownership of the fear, that acceptance of the situation made what happens next much more beneficial. Chances of improving the outcome, influencing the outcome are far greater than being in a position of fear or panic. But also the decisions I make, what choices I do, what paths I take. It's applying the wisdom of being courageous, the wisdom of those experiences. The hour of pain is I had that horrible fluid going through my arm,
mm.
raise my blood pressure. Do I want to have low blood pressure? Dangerous? Or do I want to get my blood pressure up and stabilized? I would take the hour of pain every single time.
Yeah. So you are a very accomplished public speaker, and I think public speaking is people a very common fear. I think there's some people fear public speaking more than they fear death, which is really not very logical if you think about it. So, what are some tips for anyone who's looking to be a stronger public speaker?
A strong, just a tip first of all is just get used to speaking. Just enjoy speaking, sharing your message. Listen to other podcasts, listen to other keynote speakers, and just enjoy that experience. And then just hone in on your message. Just have a signature message. What do you stand for? Having moral courage. And then just find events where you can speak. I mean, I started speaking a few years ago. I've spoken for TikTok. I've spoken for LinkedIn. I've spoken for a bank here. I've spoken for large organizations. I've spoken at an international sports conference last year.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those opportunities came about because I shared my voice. I started sharing my message.
Mm.
That's how
Yeah.
you get there.
You wrote about in chapter 8 about fear, right? And you used the example of Junko Taibei. Or did I
Yeah,
pronounce the name right? Junko Taibei?
I won't give I think it's Tabe. We both may be wrong. So, but her example. So she was the first woman to climb Mount Everest. Japanese woman who overcame any kind of prejudice that women shouldn't be climbing. Continued anyway. Just did it. A huge example. And I'll give you some background. In my book, in the first 6 pages, in the first 6 chapters, there's a pillar of courage. In the next 5 chapters, there's 5 steps of making courage a habit. And I give an example from somebody in history who's achieved something. And so I wanted to make sure there's gender equity. So Junko is in the 8th chapter. And just finding her example, it's like, oh wow, what an achievement. And that's why I wanted to include her achievement in the book.
Yeah, that it is pretty incredible accomplishment for sure. How do you deal with fear? Do you still feel fear? I mean,
Oh, I
because
do. I'm always afraid. I try
yeah,
and own the fear. And people ask about fear. And Muhammad Ali, so it's like our thoughts lead to our emotions and our and our actions. And fear manifests in different ways. It's how we react to things. It's how we respond to things. The classic 4 responses to fear are fight, flight, freeze or fawn, rolling up in a ball. So I try and use the information that fear is presenting to me. Is it rational? Am I uncomfortable about something? Is it guiding a decision I want to be making, or am I going to be avoiding something? I used to be scared of snakes. I'm no longer scared of snakes because I went to a place in the city and held the snake and held the snake twice. But
there's a photo of that in the book.
the
Yeah.
photos that in the book. Now I walk. There's a national park close to where I live, and I go for a walk there 2-3 times a week. And there are snakes around, but I've never seen a snake. But there are lots of lizards.
Mm-hmm.
And often when I see a lizard, what do? Is I stop, not because I'm scared of in case it's a snake. I stop because I don't want to be stepping on a snake, especially not Australian snakes. But what do? Is I allow the lizard to pass. Then I continue walking. So I just take ownership of the moment and continue anyway. One day I may see a snake. If I do, I will stop and let the snake pass, especially Australian snakes.
Yes. Yeah. There are definitely some snakes that you do need to be afraid of, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I've held, I guess, like baby boas, not the big time boas, because you don't want to be messing with a big time boa. But yeah, I think snakes are right up top of the list of people's fear, definitely. So what is, I guess, someone wants to learn more about the book, where should they go?
Go to my website, martinstark.co, or just search on Amazon, Courage, Your Right Hook. It's available on Amazon.
Okay.
And
Uh,
yeah, Anybody wanting to write a book, my advice is just get started. It took me 8 weeks to write this. That includes the editing process, and I had 2 weeks of depression, so I took 2 weeks off. So 8 weeks to write this, to the final version being done, and I had a fantastic editor, Christine Matheson Green.
It's very good to have a good editor because they see things that you don't see. And I mean, I've written a chapter, so I'm not a full-blown author yet, but it is a painful process because you write and they edit it, they give it back to you, and you're like, damn, when is this thing going to be done? But it is an iterative process for sure. You have a very strong presence on LinkedIn with a significant following. So two-part question. How did you build it? And what are the benefits of having a powerful following?
I built it through just being consistent, having a simple message and communicating that consistently. And I focus on a purposeful following and vitality in the message. It doesn't matter if you have 100,000 followers or 2,000 followers or 20,000 followers. It's the actual message you're building. And when you have a healthy message that helps others, delivers value, that's where you make the great impact. Now, the benefits of that, it opens up opportunities of meeting people, expanding your network, the opportunity to get a better job, to land keynote speaking gigs. LinkedIn is your professional reputation. It's your digital reputation. And so the benefits of doing so means your reputation can precede you. If somebody Googles your name, LinkedIn is likely to come right up. Do you want that to be a solid first impression? Do you want it to be, can people find you? If you're not on LinkedIn or doing something or have a profile, can you be found? What do you want people to see when they type your name in Google? Or is now ChatGPT and AI, because it's not just on the internet anymore. It's in all of the AI tools.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I really stress is you can create opportunities through a strong LinkedIn presence, right? That others won't get because part of it is really trust-based, right? If they see someone talking on a podcast repeatedly, right? They can view that person, right? Or if they know someone, oh, he's the courage guy. He wrote the book about courage, right? It does build a little bit of trust. And, I know people who their last 5 jobs, they didn't have to go through the traditional job application process, right? Which really is meant to weed people out. That's what it is. And so that's why I think it's worth it. I know some people don't think that social media is worth an investment of your time. I disagree. I mean, it's like with anything, too much can be bad for you, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
But
I've taken periods away due to mental health and just maintaining good mental and physical health. It's really what platforms you are on and why, and what you're putting out there. Now, I'm not one for speaking to the void. People are angry about something and posting, messaging, and this, and then 3 days later, it's something else. I'm one about having a consistent message, delivering value, what you stand for, because that's what people remember you for.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was actually speaking with a friend about we were talking about a podcast, and I said one of the ways if you want to build an audience very quickly, you can really just talk about very controversial topics, right?
Yeah.
And you can rile people up. And what he said was, he's like, yeah, hate for clicks, right? And I was like, yes, which I disagree with. I hope not to ever have to go down that path. But I mean, that's definitely a strategy. I don't think it's a good strategy. I think we need more people that are promoting positivity and good things out there, for sure. But yeah, when you started putting yourself out there on LinkedIn, were you afraid? Because I know when I meet a lot of people, I tell them to get started on LinkedIn, and it's hard to put themselves. I know I've done like 40 podcast episodes. When I first started, people were like, "Who is this crazy person? Why does he think he should have a podcast?" And I said because it's a great tool to promote whatever kind of work you're doing, right? And yeah, people will judge, but you know,
Of course, there was some doubt and fear and anxiety, but it didn't take long to start building confidence and also to sharpen my message. My content was all over there for the first 3 months, and it just opened up opportunities. I was on the first podcast within about 3 months. I was being interviewed for magazines and journals. Things just started coming my way very, very quickly. And it just opened up great friendships and opportunities. I connected with Junaid Iqbal in 2019. We were just seeing each other's content. And when I came up with the idea for the World Gay Boxing Championships, Junaid was hosting LinkedIn Live. He's one of the only people in the world to have LinkedIn Live. And he was talking about WGBC on his LinkedIn Live show. It was like LinkedIn.
yeah, dude, his LinkedIn lives are great.
They were the best. And his
They
stuff
are. They
now is
were.
just
Yeah.
fantastic.
I love Janai. Janai's he's a great guy, and he's brilliant, and he's hilarious, man.
Well, I mentioned Junaid in the book because he flew from New York to Chicago to meet me for the World
Yes.
Gay Boxing Championship.
I remember that. I remember that. So you were on you went to Wrigley. You were on Wrigley Field, right? With the
Yes.
Chicago Cubs. What
Yeah.
was that experience like?
It was awesome. So I threw the ceremonial opening pitch for the Chicago Cubs Pride game against the San Francisco Giants. And that came about because of all the work I'd been doing for the previous 5 years. They just we got in contact with them, and they said, well, Martin, like to throw the ceremonial opening pitch. And it was like, of course I do. But I'd never thrown a ball, I'd never thrown a baseball, I'd never been to a baseball game.
What did you think?
It was just, I loved it. I mean, my baseball throw, it goes to the left. A couple of hours before I did throw it in a straight line, but it was, I'll tell you, I'd watched things on YouTube and I'd heard the announcer say, this is your pitch. So in the 15 minutes leading up to my pitch, I focused on, I'm going to enjoy this. With other people, is it nerve-wracking? Or nerves were there, but I didn't focus on that. I focused on making sure I enjoy this because this is my opportunity. This is for me to enjoy. And that's why I enjoyed it every minute. It was over in seconds. But wow,
Yeah.
the Chicago Cubs, oh my God, oh, what an amazing experience. In Wrigley Field, best sports stadium in the world by far.
I've never been, but I've heard it's like a very like a party atmosphere.
It's just the history of it, the party atmospheres. You go in, there's that sense of community. There's that sense of this is Chicago, and there's this stadium. There's nothing like it. You've got to experience it.
Yeah. I saw the video of it. That was pretty cool, man. I mean, was it a sold out crowd when you were there?
So there are about 10,000 people in the crowd when I was there. The video itself, It seems the crowd is empty, but
still 10,000 people is still, that's
there are
a
about
bigger
1 million
audience
people
than
watching
most
online.
people will ever have.
The Cubs get more than 1 million people watching their game, so there are 1 million people watching online.
No,
Who cares? It's cool. It's a great experience.
that was a great experience. What did you think? What do you think about the United States? What has your experience been? How is it different than Australia?
So I'm not going to talk about politics straight away.
Okay. Yeah, we shouldn't. Yeah,
We should
stay away from politics.
stay away from politics. What I love is the entrepreneurial spirit, the backing of businesses, the backing of entrepreneurs. People are friendly and open. There are some crazes. You know, I'll tell you, my first night in Chicago, I was very much in the neighborhood, and I was standing waiting for a friend who was coming via Uber, and there was a pickup truck, and somebody shouted faggot. And at the back of their pickup truck, they had a crucifix. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Somebody like driving around purposely wanting to be rude to people. and you get those everywhere. But I just find American people just so welcoming, friendly, very supportive. Some of my biggest supporters are from America. I think the difference between here and Australia is I think there's more of a willing to back entrepreneurs, to open up the Rolodex. And I love living in Australia. I'm not wanting to criticize Australia per se, but Australia does not have the same entrepreneurial spirit and mindset and willing to back entrepreneurs as what America has.
Yeah. And that's one of the benefits of remote work, right?
Yeah.
Is you and I can do a podcast, right? Yeah. Whereas many years ago, that would have involved a plane ticket,
yeah,
expensive plane ticket, and a lot of time, right? So I think, I'm pro remote work for that reason, right? It is a small world. We're so much closer connected because of the internet, and I think remote work is going to be here to stay. But yeah, so this was a great conversation. So for my listeners and followers, if anyone's interested in buying the book or learning more about the book, where should they go?
Just go to Amazon. That's the best place. Amazon, and
then search for Courage, Your Right Hook.
Yeah,
by Martin Stark.
I'm going to share this one story in here, which is very topical right now.
Go ahead.
I developed trans policy for boxing to enable trans boxers to safely participate against cisgender boxers at the World Gay Boxing Championships. So I mentioned that in the book and the process that I followed, which is as per the IOC guidelines, speaking with trans boxers and cisgender boxers to get a position where it was safe based on testosterone. So there's a lot of talk right now about trans inclusion in sport. I talk about the approach I took in the book, and that took incredible courage.
It did take incredible courage.
Yeah.
And I applaud you for your courage. So, Martin Stark, thank you for coming on the MKH podcast. I really appreciate it. And looking forward to seeing your content on LinkedIn. And one day, if you're ever in New York City, please reach out. It would be great.
I'd love to. Thanks, everybody.
You and Janayat and myself could all hang out. And then maybe one day, if I'm on the other side of the world, there's no plans at the moment, but I could find a reason. It would be great to catch up. So, Martin, awesome. Thank you so much. Courage, Your Right Hook by Martin Stark on Amazon now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Yo, I heard that we hitting that 42nd, let's go. I heard that we hitting that 34th, let's go. I heard that we hitting that 14th, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. What? I heard that we hitting that Union Square, let's go. I heard that we hitting